name is Christina Hodges, and I'm doing my report on the history and invention of electricity. I would like to prove that very many people, not just Thomas Edison, contributed to the invention of electricity. I did my presentation kind of like a timeline, so I'll go ahead and get started. Started out with Benjamin Franklin. In 1752, he suspected that lightning was an electrical current in nature, and he wanted to see if he was right. So, he figured that one way to test his idea would be to see if the lightning would pass through metal. And he decided to use a metal key, and he looked around for a way to get the key up near or closer to the lightning. As you probably already know, he ended up using a child's toy. He used a kite to prove that the electricity, or the lightning had electricity. His famous stormy kite flight was in June of 1752. It led him to develop many of the terms that we use today when we talk about electricity, such as battery, conductor, condenser, charge, discharge, plus, minus, negative, electric shock, things like that. Ben understood that lightning was very powerful, and he also understood that it was dangerous. That's why he also figured out a way to protect people, buildings, and ships from it. He invented the lightning rod. Although electricity was just a hobby for Benjamin Franklin, he made many important contributions. Later, scientists like Michael Faraday and Thomas Edison continued to study electricity using many of Benjamin Franklin's ideas. Then we go on to the battery. The battery was actually invented by a man named Alessandro Volta in 1791. The first suggested use of static electricity was the so-called electric pistol invented by Alessandro Volta. He invented that. An electrical wire was placed in a jar filled with methane gas, and by sending an electrical spark through the wire, the jar would explode. Alessandro Volta then thought of using this invention to provide long-distance communications, only addressing one Boolean bit. An iron wire supported by wooden poles was to be strung from Como to Milan, Italy. At the receiving end, the wire would terminate in a jar filled with methane gas. On command, an electrical spark is sent in the wire that would detonate the electrical pistol to a signal, a coded event. This communication link was never built, but it did help establish electricity and the communication that we have today. In 1791, while working at Bologna University, a man named Luigi Galvani discovered that the muscle of a frog contracted when touched by a metallic object. This phenomenon became known as animal electricity. Prompted by these experiments, Alessandro Volta initiated a series of experiments using zinc, lead, tin, or iron as positive plates. Copper, silver, gold, or graphite were used as the negative plates. The next step in generating electricity was through electrolysis. Volta discovered in 1800 that a continuous flow of electrical force was generated between the metals or electrons. And this led to the invention of the first voltaic cell, better known as the battery. Volta discovered further that the voltage would increase when voltaic cells were stacked one on top of the other. Here we have Alessandro Volta's voltaic pile. It is basically, he has a light bulb here, There's a connecting bar that connects the rods, and each of the connecting bars, he has silver, zinc, and then a separator in between the silver and zinc. This was his voltaic pile, constructed of alternating discs of zinc and copper with pieces of cardboard soaked in brine between the metals. The voltaic pile produced an electrical current. This metallic conducting arc was used to carry electricity over a greater distance. And Alessandro Volta's voltaic pile was the first battery that produced reliable, steady current of electricity. Then we move on to the invention of the light bulb, which was invented by Thomas Edison. It's also known as the incandescent lamp. Its function is it was an electric lamp in which a filament is heated to incandescence by an electric current. Today's incandescent glass bulbs use filaments made of tungsten rather than carbon, like they used in the 1800s. This is a picture of the first light bulb, and these are the light bulbs that we use today. So they're not very much different. Thomas Edison discovered that he could take a glass envelope and use a glass fuse enclosure with connecting wires, a screw cap, and make sure he had electrical contact on the bottom of the light bulb, and he could produce electricity through the electrical contact and therefore lighting the bulb. A patent was awarded to Thomas Edison in September 1891 for a process and apparatus for generating electricity. It states, "The object I have in view is to generate electricity directly from carbon, coal, or other carbonaceous material without the loss caused by indirect method, heretofore employed by converting the same amount into motive power, from which electricity is produced by mechanical motion. This I accomplished by employing carbon and carbonaceous material for the generating or soluble electrode of a generating cell, and in using therewith an active agent, oxides, salts, or compounds of elements, by decomposition of which the carbon or carbonaceous material will be acted upon at higher temperatures." So these three men, Benjamin Franklin, Alessandro Volta, and Thomas Edison, all contributed to the invention of electricity and the electricity that we have today. I made a timeline that shows that electricity actually dates back to 600 BC. Thales of Miletus writes about amber becoming charged by rubbing it together. He was describing what we now call static electricity. So the theory of electricity actually has been around since at least 600 BC. Here's just a few factors down the timeline up until 1900. In 1747, Benjamin Franklin experiments with static charges in the air and theorized about the existence of an electrical fluid that can be composed of particles. William Watson discharged a Leyden jar through a circuit that became the comprehension of current and circuit. And Henry Cavendish started measuring the conductivity of different materials. So there in 1 year, 3 different men learned things about electricity. In 1752, Benjamin Franklin invented the lightning rod, and he demonstrated that lightning is indeed electricity. In 1800, the first electric battery was invented by Alessandro Volta. Volta proved that electricity could travel through wires. In 1816, the first energy utility in the U.S. was founded. In 1821, the first electric motor was invented by Michael Faraday. In 1837, the first industrial electric motors were invented and introduced. In 1878, Edison Electric Company and American Electric and Illuminating, which was out of Canada, were founded. In 1880, the first power system isolated from Edison. And in Grand Rapids, Michigan, Charles Brush arc light dynamo drivers, the dynamo is driven by water turbine used to provide theater and storefront illumination. In 1888, a rotating field AC alternator was invented by Nikola Tesla. In 1891, 60-cycle AC system introduced in the U.S. 1892, General Electric Company formed, and it merged with the Thomas Houston and Edison General Electric Company, which became the General Electric that we know. And in 1897, the electron was discovered by J.J. Thomson. So not only did Thomas Edison invent the light bulb, but he, as well as all of these other people, helped introduce the theory of electricity to the world. And he helped produce, all of these men helped produce the electricity that we know today. My name is Christina, and I just want to thank you for listening to my speech. Thank you.